Hello everyone. Welcome to this last plenary session. My name is Xavier Moreau from University of Bordeaux, and it's a real pleasure for me to introduce Eric Lalliard. Eric is a scientific director of PSA Group since 2015. And Eric is going to talk us about scientific strategy for the next decade. So, Eric, when you want.
Good morning, everybody. It's for me a real pleasure to be there and a great honor to be the chair of this session. I'd like firstly to thank, of course, the organization of this seminar and perhaps mainly Prism Laboratory, which is included in this organization. So my target today is not to speak about very, I would say, detailed theories of the subject you are fully aware with, but to try to open the window and to see what's the evolution of the world around us and what kind of consequences it could have on our scientific approach, scientific organization in the academic side of the question, but also in the industrial one. So, I hope it will work. It works. My presentation will be shared in four main subjects. The first one is the current automotive context. So, as I mentioned, we open the window and try to see what will be the evolution, the consequences of the moving of the world. What's behind this first analysis, the scientific innovation and research inside the PSA group. Of course, when we are speaking of scientific research in the group, we are speaking of our network, of course, called STELLAB, as you can see in the third bullet point, and of course, the PhD programs inside PSA. So let's go on with the first presentation, the first slide, the first situation. So I have got a scoop. The world is changing. Of course, is changing for now several years, but also the acceleration of this change get higher and higher. It's a reason why we try to identify some of these evolutions which can have impact on our scientific organization and our activities. First of all, of course, you can see at the top left for you, the digitalization and connectivity. This subject is very important for automotive industry because the way of moving will be different in the future. We already know and we already see the situation with the mobility, and of course, in the future, our vehicle will be probably like that because of this mobility, apps, services, and all this kind of device will be the way of moving in the future. Second important point is the green planet, of course, ecological approach. We'll see later that our customer, and basically as our customer, it's the most important point for us, car makers. If we are not able to deliver the right product for the customer, at the end, we will not be anymore in the market for a long time. The population is evolving, of course. The engine is getting higher and higher, so the request and the needs of this kind of population is drastically different from the previous one we knew for decades now. Globalization, of course, we are not only in the French market, even not in a European one, but a global, worldwide market. Urbanization is also a point in which we have to be very careful in mobility because of this increase of urbanization. The way of moving will be drastically impacted. And last but not least, on this slide, we are currently switching from the owning to the use. And by this way, it will be a drastic, one more time, change for the automotive industry because previously the target for our customer was to own the vehicle, and in the future, the target will be to use the vehicle, and it's drastically different. The value is not in the same area, switching from the vehicle as an object of mobility, from the mobility by itself, whatever is the object, the physical one we will use. So firstly, we open the window, as I mentioned previously, and we can see that this major evolution is currently running. Okay, how can we, as industrial actors, manage this kind of evolution? We notified, as you can see on the slide, several evolution and major trends. We call them mega trends on this subject. And these mega trends will be the one we try to analyze deeper to see what kind of evolution what's behind each subject and what is the consequence for this evolution. First one is the market divergence. Of course, we can analyze the value and the figure we can see on the slide. The population is getting higher and higher, and mainly in the city, as you can see from, I would say now, 54% to 66 in 20 years, roughly, 30 years, roughly. It will be a completely different approach for us because of this evolution. We'll see later. Second trends, we analyze sharing. Sharing concept becomes the mainstream, as I mentioned previously, not only in a vehicle, but using it. And by using it, the way of doing of our customer with the mobility is completely different. And one more time, the value will be located in another area. The third one, energy and environment. Of course, we are currently in this phase. The beginning is already behind us, and we will be, and we'll see later, in this phase, switching from ICE to BEV, electric vehicle, or PHEV alternative for that. This has also impact of the industry. We are currently switching from, I would say, standard factory, able to build IC engine to another kind of factory with electrical engine or battery or things like that. Autonomous, it's the case. The volume currently estimated in 2035 is 24%. With self-driving vehicles. Currently, we have an important discussion about what's autonomous, what's the level of autonomy we are looking for and when, and we think this value will be the reality in 15 years. Associated to autonomous, of course, digitalization, difficult to say. And by this way, we have a complete new field in front of us, because with that, we will be able to apply artificial intelligence, of course, with plenty of data we have by the vehicle by itself, the connectivity we will see at the end. This kind of information will be something very important for us to build the future on it. Customer behavior, that's clear. Evolution of the world, evolution of the customer behavior, evolution of the value of our customer, and by this way, the product, our product, the vehicle, and the services associated to the vehicle have to change. And connectivity, that's something evident. The connectivity will be also one major trend for the future. If we try to go deeper on each point, we'll see that the situation of the market divergence. The evolution of the population, that's clear. I don't know if you have the idea of the speed and the angle of the slope, but in only, I would say, 15 years, we will have roughly 1 billion people on the Earth. And by this way, we will have a completely different situation, links, of course, with the urbanization we will have in parallel on this point. Other consequences is the evolution of GDP. We can see the current situation, I would say current situation, yes, not far away behind us. The current situation in which, in this area, you can have China and India, we see that around 22% of the global GDP were for these two countries. In the next future, 2030, the situation will be completely different, and we switch from 22 to 39% of the GDP. And of course, the requests coming from Indian people or Chinese one are completely different from the other, coming from the United States, for example, or other countries, European, Japan, and others. So by this way, we will have not only an increase of the volume by itself, linked to the evolution of the number of people on the Earth, but also a different request coming from this analysis of the GRDP. The capacity of buying vehicle will be completely different in this country, and of course the market will change by this way. Sharing, important element in our analysis. I think the best summarize is in this part of the slide. One more time, the current situation, we can see the impact of urbanization and new mobility on the vehicle market. The number of vehicles, 87 million vehicles in 2015. In the same perimeter, it will be the same kind of request without all the evolution I mentioned before. What will be the market in 2030? We estimate with this urbanization, with macroeconomic growth, with the increase of the population I mentioned before, the market will switch from this value, and we will have 41 million added vehicle globally. Nevertheless, the situation, and because of the mega trends, we will have some negative evolution, I will say, in the number of the vehicle, because we will have this evolution, this new mobility, these new services, this new vehicle, shared one, this autonomous vehicle will open different possibility for our customer, and the value will be decreasing for 23 million vehicle, and new shared vehicle. What's new shared vehicle? We don't know exactly yet, but it will be new proposal coming from this request from our customer of sharing. This new shared vehicle will increase of 10 million. It means that in 2030, the market will switch from this value to this one. Okay, it's an important increase, but it's a different design behind this value. And by this way, we need to adapt our proposal as a car maker to be sure that we will still be an important player in this new market. Regulation. I think regulation is something very important. We have to be compatible with the requests coming from our politician. Firstly, we can see a global tendency that the level of CO2 per kilometer is currently decreasing and will continue in the future to reach lower value. We are not able to analyze all the curve you have on the slide. I propose to focus on one, the European one, because we are European. And I think it's in somewhere something very interesting to analyze the political approach on this subject. What does it mean? You can see, this curve is the European one, and we can see the evolution of the regulation. Important step in 2020, 95 grams per kilometer. That's the target we have to fulfill at this time with the current cycle, NEDC. After, the value will not change, but the cycle will be different, and the consequences of this evolution of a cycle is quite important. I will try to give you some figure on this subject. So in 2023, somewhere here, we will have this switch from NEDC to WLTP. It's two different cycles. The results we will obtain with the same vehicle on these two processes will be different. If we were at 95 grams on one vehicle, I don't know which one, but one vehicle in 2020, what will be the value in 2023 with the new cycle, WLTP? We think that this cycle evolution will increase the results of CO2 from 95 to 120, roughly, of course, it's an estimation. But this increase is very important compared to the target we have. Nevertheless, we have a second evolution 1 year later, 2025, or 2 years later, 2025, with a new regulation. At this time, the request is to improve the results obtained during the certification of the vehicle, so the 95 grams, to increase this, to improve, sorry, these results by 15%. It means at this time, with the new cycle, I mentioned previously, so the value of 120 on WLTP will come back at this moment to 95 grams, but on a different cycle compared to 2020. So we will have an increase with the cycle and a decrease with the new regulation. It's not the end. After that, we have, later not mentioned in the slide, the second phase of the requests coming from our regulator. It's also compared to 2020, the value with a reduction of results around 37.5%. It means that if we go on with the value I obtain on CO2 with my calculation, the value we are targeted, they ask us to target in 2030 will be around 70 grams of CO2. It means that this slope will be still in this direction. Consequences for car maker. Clearly, our product, the current one, is not able to fulfill this regulation in now not far away of 10 years. 10 years is very short as an industrial approach, and by this way, we need to switch rapidly from one design to the other. It's a reason why we will have a drastic increase of BEV production. We hope that our customer will be able to buy this kind of vehicle. It's another question. Nevertheless, versus this evolution of regulation, we will have to do that. The only way to fulfill the regulation is to have part, and I would say important part of our production with BEV and PHEV. To be sure of that, another important point coming from the regulator is the percentage of electric or PHEV vehicle sell as a mean value for 1 year. Associated to the important date of the evolution, 2025 and 2030, a regulator associated evolution of the percentage, and fixed set a percentage of BEV and PHEV for each car maker. It means 2025, 15% of the production has to be in this configuration, and a higher value later. It's the first time the regulator is setting up a value for a technical choice. It's not a level of emission, it's a kind of technology fixed by the regulator. And it's something new. It's the first time we have this kind of regulation. And the open question for the moment is, are the market able to support such drastic evolution of the way of selling vehicle, on the selling the design of the vehicle by itself and the price associated to this vehicle? So we need to do that because of the regulator, question mark. Do our market able to support this kind of evolution? I don't have the answer yet, but we will have to do that. If we go further on our megatrend, we think that LCA, life cycle assessment, will be something very important in the future. I didn't mention at all this LCA approach in the previous slides because it's not mandatory in the current regulation or the evolution of the current one. But we think that at the end, because of parameter we are already used with this, global warming, acidification, photochemical O3, eutrophication. Because of that, we will have to take into account this life cycle assessment, and not only on the customer use, which is currently the way of doing the regulation, not only on this phase, but from the very beginning, sourcing, manufacturing, distribution, use, of course, and recovery of the vehicle. If we don't take into account this I would say the other phase, not only the use, if we don't take into account the other phase, it will be something difficult for the Earth and for our world. It will be probably one input, new input in the future for our regulation. Connectivity, perhaps I don't need to comment this point because we are already inside connectivity. We are all connected. We have a number of figures explaining and giving an idea of what's the impact of this connectivity in the future. Automotive market will be in the same situation. Currently, the increase of connected vehicle is at the very beginning, but in the next year, the situation will be very different by the number of vehicles. Autonomous, of course, because of connectivity, autonomous vehicle is something on development. So we can see, I think it's not important to comment, but we are currently around this area. It means we have some very interested function on this vehicle, highway integrated assist. So it means we are able to manage longitudinal and lateral dynamics of the vehicle, whatever the speed is. City park, of course. Highway integrated with assist in the lane change. It's already implemented on the vehicle. Important phase is this one. You can see no date mentioned, probably before 2025. At this time, we switch from level 2 to higher level. What it means? It means that before, the responsibility of the driver is still the same as we are used to till the beginning of the history of the automotive. And after that, the question is open. Who will be responsible of the behavior of the vehicle? Will it be the driver? Will it be the vehicle? Will it be the car maker? Will it be somewhere else? It's an open question, and it's a very important one. When we are switching from level 2 to higher level, we will have to solve this question to bring an answer before doing that. It's very important for the future. And without clarification on this point, I think it will be difficult to go in this way and improve the functionality of the vehicle without, I would say, the responsibility of the driver by itself to drive the vehicle. Digitalization, that's clear. Data, we are now in the data world, and by this way, we have plenty of evolution, plenty of revenue, plenty of value associated to this data. Vehicle will be automotive industry, and vehicle will be part of this game. And of course, we will have some investigation of creating a new value chain for the automotive with data. Customer behavior. At the end, customer will be still the person we have to buy our vehicle. But the world is changing, the customer also. And we are facing social demographic drivers, different one, mentioned in the first line. Aging population, I mentioned before, request is different. Middle class, the growing of middle class, one more time with different approach, different need, different requests. Of course, both of them in urbanization phase, and by this way, the demand will be different. Single households, of course, it's not the same product at the end, and individualism will be also a social democratic drivers we have to take into account. On the other hand, we have the changing attitude. So we are able to establish links between the first line to the last one. Aging population, seamless experience, safety and privacy will be important. Middle class, of course, environmental awareness will be one important factor. Of course, the other mentioned before still compatible with this request. Urbanization, of course, ownership or alternative with the use. Subscription model with household, individualism and personalization. Personalization is very important for us because we are not in a situation to propose one vehicle for all the world. Now, Indian people, Chinese people, African one, European one, US one, don't have exactly the same request. And they will look for the most adapted answer, the most adapted vehicle to the request they are looking for. It's a reason why the vehicle in the US market will not be exactly the same as the European one, the Japanese one, or the Chinese or Indian, so on. And for a mass industry, such as automotive industry, it's difficult to adapt the product to each customer at the end. Question of price. So that's the first part, half an hour. The first part for the current situation we have to face and what will be the world in which we have to propose the best solution, the best proposal possible at the end. But what's the scientific innovation and research in the PSA group in this context? So we saw that the World Exchange one more time, and if the World Exchange we are not able to design our product, design our service, design our answer to our customer only in Europe. So it's a reason why we have a global approach on PSA side with a different center of competence located in Europe, Africa, China, India, South America, and probably North America in the future. So we have to be together to answer the question of the market, and of course our target is to win together. It's one axis on which the scientific department has to work. Agility, because the world is evolving very fast, and if we are not able to propose answer, to propose scientific answer at the same speed, it will not be the right one. Efficiency, because we are in the industry, and without efficiency, we will not be at the right place on the market, and if we are not at the right place, it's a question of competitiveness behind that, even at the scientific department. So what's the strategy behind that? Not a scientific one, but a global one. I don't spend many time on this subject. We will have a core model strategy. It means that the structure of our vehicle will be the same, and we change the shape depending on the market. Perhaps more interesting core techno strategy, clean technology, of course, the evolution of ecology I mentioned before. So we need to have ICE powertrain optimization because of PHEV, but also electrification program because of BEV. We see that it's completely linked to the evolution of the market. Autonomous vehicle, so development. We are currently inside. Including the fast tech, the availability of them, and of course autonomous program. If you go deeper in the clean technology and the smart vehicle, autonomous one, you can have a picture of what the question on which we have to work, and what the kind of activities we have to do. So best-in-class engine consumption, because even if it's, I would say, the end of IC technology, we will use this technology in the next year because of PHEV. And if we are not able to optimize IC, it will be perhaps difficult to be competitive. Electrification program. Number of PHEV, I would say rapidly, and new BEV, the same. Smart vehicle, some functionality we already implemented on our vehicle, full mirroring. So it means that the vehicle is compatible, the screen of the vehicle is compatible with the screen of our smartphone, and we can switch from one to the other. Infotainment over the air, very important, because if we have to keep last update vehicle, we need to have this capability. Full car over the air, same answer. And the next functionality arriving on the market, traffic jam, hands off, of course, and eyes off in the autonomous approach. Just an idea of the technical solidness level and who operates at what time. Not very important for today. Most important, it's perhaps the network. How are we able, with our academic network and scientific partnership, how are we able to answer the next important question and the answer of the request coming from the evolution of the world? We put in place an important network, scientific one, and the name is STELLAB. Important word, international one. It means, as I mentioned previously, we have center of competence all over the world. We also have scientific network able to cover all the world. So in China, in Africa, in Europe, in South America, we have established links with university laboratories to be able to catch important things coming from the laboratories called push. So new investigation on the scientific department in the laboratory. Potentially something interesting for a car maker, and our partners call us explaining, oh guys, I've got something very interesting. It could be something very competitive in the future for the automotive industry. Can we work on that? It's the push approach, the scientific knowledge, the scientific skills, explaining what will be the future versus the current study they are doing. The pull, it's the opposite. We, as a car maker, have some problem, some issue, without evident answer. So with the network, we're able to call them, ask for an answer, at least a study, to see if there's a possibility to solve the open point we have currently on our product. And this way of proceeding is pull. We are pulling the answer. Of course, this scientific network include PhD, include engineers, include experts on our side to have the full knowledge and skills available. On one side, academic, and on the other side, automotive. And this network called STELLAB is the links with all the open lab we have inside. And of course, we try to cover all the specialty of the vehicle. A map to explain where our network is located. So, as I mentioned, all over the world, perhaps not there. It's not the first priority, Australia. But China, of course, this very dynamic area in the future, Europe, Africa, South America, and probably in the future, next future, US. If we go deeper in our structure, you can see that we are well located all over the France, even in the Europe. And in France, we have perhaps a special focus today for the Open Lab Energetics with this kind of figure. If you have something to remember, it's a long story now since the January 2011. It's a month quite important all over the year. Number of PhD, important also, sorry. And for the PhD, PSA could propose some work after some job after the PhD. It has been the case for 5 PhD students. Number of publication, number of finance project, and roughly 4 common projects per year. It means that it's a strategic partnership, strategic relationship, very efficient, and our target, of course, is to continue on this way. The subject, I think you well know this subject, alternative energy currently, of course, alternative powertrain, what will be the next answer versus powertrain to the request of the regulator and our customer, and eco-driving strategy. So we develop a new value for PSA Group by this eco-driving strategy. We'd like to have a very to continue on this way, and it's a reason why we just reinforce this partnership with Explo Energetics. It's included in the Open Lab, Energetics. It's an experimental platform of PSA Group in this Open Lab, dedicated for the experimental study, of course, and with added budget. You can see on the slide. Now, if we come back to the world approach, China with several Open Lab mentioned there, I think versus the timing, it's not important to have a deep analysis of each one. But the idea is we are able to design, to study, to have deep analysis of the Chinese behavior. What's the request coming from the Chinese? We are able to do that only if we are located in China. It's a dream to design something in Paris for the Chinese population. We will not have the right answer. It's a reason why it's very important for us to be located in the country by itself, because of the culture of the people and the request they have versus the vehicle and the automotive industry. It's a reason why we are located in China. Recently, we established a new point in Africa. Don't forget that Africa will be one of the most important markets in the future. So we are located in Morocco, and the target is cover all the Africa by this scientific point, I would say. We are located in South America, in Sao Paulo, with important specialty about the efficiency of omnivorous engine and biofuels, ecological approach, one more time. A lot of experiments and experiences on Brazil, because for a long time they are using this kind of energy for their market. Of course, USA with Atlanta, dedicated partnership including the Open Lab of NES. And we also have innovation cell. So what's differences between the innovation cell and Open Lab? It's really simple. The target for a cell is to open the eyes and try to analyze what's going on in the area in which they are located. Just to highlight something is moving. Hey guys, I saw something. We need to work on this subject. Open Lab is quite different. We have not only this capacity to identify a new subject because of the location, but also to work on this subject. So synergy is important between Cell and Open Lab. It's a reason why we have this location of Cell all over the world. And the subject, you can see, Brazil, Spain, Singapore, Chinese, and each time with an area to cover with investigation. Last but not the least, chairs. We have a structure of chairs, mainly in France, with several subjects, with different school or university, as mentioned. Why we need chair? Because we need, for example, with Armand Peugeot chairs, a strategic and ecological approach of the question of, for example, electric vehicle. What will be the grid? What will be the interface with the grid? How can we monetize the value, the new value of services or things like that? It's not only a technical approach, it's a global approach with economical and marketing side. Last but not the least, the PhD programs within the Groupe PSA. So it's now for a long time we are involved in this kind of a program, 28 years, number of PhD, not far away from 500 now. It's something we are very proud of that. We are completely included in the CIF program with ANRT. Currently nowadays, 80 PhD CIF with a target of 90, and of course a process of collection for new idea for the future, evaluation, a specific internal committee put in place to decide if it's the right subject, scientific enough, compatible with the industrial target, and of course the launching for this PhD. It's not only technical subject, as I mentioned, sociological one, human one, because just an example, autonomous vehicle. We are switching from the driver leading the vehicle, driving the vehicle, to a vehicle leading the driver. What will be the feeling of the person inside the vehicle? It's an important question, and if we are not able to answer, at the end, perhaps it's something completely outside the target of our customer. It's the reason why we have PhD analysis on this subject. Future for the skill for PSA, of course, as I mentioned, engagement of a PhD inside the group is something very important for us. And the ratio we will reach is 10 to 15% PhD student recruited. So, in conclusion, very simple versus the time. If we have to keep in mind a few important words, so innovation for the fast changing of automotive and the context by itself. Lab for the academic open innovation and organization, the global approach. Efficiency with our open lab networks, and of course, PhD, the CIF program, French one, very important for us. Thank you very much for your attention. And if you have questions.
Thank you very much, Eric, for this very interesting presentation. So now we have a few minutes for questions, remarks, comments.
It was very clear. Very, very clear.
Thank you for this very interesting presentation. I have a question concerning natural gas. Is your company looking into natural gas? What are you doing, and if not, why not?
Interesting question. Of course, in our global analysis of alternative fuel, gas, it's one point of them. So currently, we don't have a very important program dedicated to this natural gas. Nevertheless, we have some investigation on the subject because we think it could be an answer at the end, but we didn't launch an important program on this subject for the moment.
One related question, Professor Onder, made me think about yesterday's presentation by Professor Roussel, in which she explained some prospects of having these electrofuels, alternative fuels that would move the transportation industry away from petroleum. Can you tell us your thought process about what an automotive company, not necessarily PSA view, but what can an automotive company do to help the transition from petroleum to other liquid hydrocarbon fuels that would be more carbon friendly? Your engines would remain the same, but the question is, how can you help? Because we understand that's the business of the energy companies, not of the automotive companies.
Okay, good question. Thank you for that. The current situation is we have in front of us a lot of alternative compared to the current situation with the energy. As I mentioned in the beginning of my presentation, we will have to fulfill a regulation about the technology we need to implement on the market, electrical one, and our first priority for the moment is to identify the right product behind that, what will be the best powertrain, what will be what kind of energy we will use. Of course, ecological energy will be the best one, but our first priority is to answer the question of the regulator, firstly. Nevertheless, as I mentioned in my presentation, LCE will be something very important in the future. Not in the 10 next year, but later. We think at this time, regulator will include some demand on this point. It's a reason why we have an important program currently investigating scientifically all the alternative we can identify on this subject. By this way, we think that gas, e-fuel, other hydrogen, other kind of alternative of the current fuel could be somewhere an answer. Nevertheless, we have to include in our thinking the fact that automotive industry means important investment, and we are currently investing on the electrical approach, electrical powertrain, and the constraints we have. Nevertheless, the choose of the right alternative fuel. The constraints we have is to keep the investment we are currently doing for electrical energy usable, interesting for the future. And we are currently playing with these two constraints: regulation, investment for the industry. So we are at the beginning of the story. Of course, the visible part of the iceberg is electrical one, but nevertheless, we are working a lot with Orléans on the other subject for this kind of new energy.
Okay, thanks for this very interesting talk. You made some comparison between cars and smartphones. That's maybe a future trend. Newcomers, new automotive manufacturers try to sell cars as smartphone with new features that can be released with a very short time between development to the car. So, and customer maybe will like this approach of having a kind of car with new feature every 6 months. But on the other hand, the car market is subject to a lot of regulation, safety, and so on. And how do you feel about that? How will you be able to evolve from the previous model where a car was designed and it remained the same until it's over, to the new system where a car is more or less a huge computer with wheels and you can update it in a very fast fashion?
So to be sure to understand the question, we are currently in a drastic change of the way of designing our vehicle because of this evolution. Your question is, how are we able to handle this fast evolution?
There is two aspects. Is the time to market become very short, and the fact that you update the car frequently. And then there is the regulation. I mean, there is safety standards, there is a lot of emission, pollution, and so on. So I don't see how you can somehow improve a car. Let's say, beside the fun part of the entertainment system, if you want to go deeper, how will you manage the dichotomy between the tests which are needed for legal stuff and the customer that want something very fast?
So part of the answer is we are thinking that the first choice is to balance the intelligence in the vehicle and outside the vehicle. It means when we are speaking of autonomous vehicle, for example, we will use, of course, AI, we will use big algorithm, and we will not be able, as an economical approach, to implement all these features in the vehicle. So we will use connectivity as a first answer of this question. So part in board, algorithm in which we have regulation, safety. We need to be very reactive versus context of the vehicle, of course, will be on board. And the rest, data, map, information with a response time higher, not very important at the right moment for the vehicle. We will use connectivity for that. It means that we will be able to change, make evolution, improvement without direct change on the vehicle by itself. We would love in parallel FOTA, which means update over the air. So by this way, we will be able to change the design, the software, the algorithm inside the vehicle, but at this time it won't be each Monday morning to have a change. We will have a process, a program on this subject to be able to identify, I don't know, perhaps twice a year, update for the vehicle and the algorithm inside. For outside, it will be different. We will be able to keep the last update every time with this global approach.
Last question? Not? Okay, it's time. Thanks again, Eric.
Thank you very much.